Hello, Career Winner Circle family. I see we've got a few people in the room for our very first live broadcast. So thank you for being here and supporting. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tammy Alvarez and the creator of the Career Winner Circle, where we empower business leaders to make a big impact and love their jobs again. And who doesn't want that? So do me a favor in the chat window, just pop in, tell me who's here, tell me what you have to celebrate today, because we are all about making positive impact. And we're going to be doing this every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern. So I'm looking forward to seeing you here and seeing the community get even bigger. You guys have known that I am on a tear right now about networking. And so if you checked out the LinkedIn profile or the recent YouTube videos, it is all about networking. And I was on a call with one of my clients and they're like, why are you making such a big deal about this? And the reality is, from a networking perspective, it is the holy grail to all things that tie back to your career success. And when we talk about networking, there's so many challenges. It's like working out. You know you're supposed to do it, but you really don't go to the gym as often as you need to, go for that run as often as you want to. And one of the big blockers that keeps showing up for my clients over and over again is this concept of getting ghosted. And you're out there, you're having those conversations, everything is great, you're doing all the things you're supposed to do, and then all of a sudden, you're done with the conversation and it's crickets, and you got nothing. And you feel like an idiot, and it gets in your head, and you don't want to stalk, and you've got all these things that are going on. So what I want to do today is we are going to talk about the 3 things that you can do right now to do your part to help stop the ghosting. Because I have a confession to make, and I used to be a ghoster. And I hate to say it because I've been on the other end and it totally sucks. But really, I was that girl. I know what happens. And because I know what happens, I can tell you guys what you can do to prevent yourself from getting ghosted from people like me when I was running a giant corporate job and just crazy busy all the time. So there are 3 things that I want you to remember every single networking conversation. And we're going to dive in a little bit deeper so you have a chance to know what I'm talking about. And then I'll have a few other videos for you towards the end of the week that is going to even give you more information. But when you are having a networking conversation, I don't care whether you're looking for a job, trying to do business development, or just trying to further your career, every single conversation you have needs to have 3 things. The first thing it needs to have is a big what's in it for me. So when we're reaching out to network, it's usually because we have an ask, but we want to make sure that there's something in it for them too. So I'm going to talk to you about how to do that. The second thing is that you need to be really, really specific with your plan and your backup strategy. And we'll get into that a little bit more in just a second. And then the third thing is, I guarantee you, none of you are following up nearly as much as you need to because you don't want to bother. And so we're going to talk about that in terms of how do you really and how much do you really need to follow up to make sure that you are doing everything that you can do to keep that conversation going. So let's talk about what's in it for me. I think the biggest times that people get ghosted is when they're looking for a role. And you're working with recruiters or you're working with, low-level managers that aren't ultimately going to make that decision. And like, yep, we've got a few more candidates to interview and we'll get back to you. Now that is the kiss of death. You never, ever leave a conversation that way. What you need to do is you need to give them an incentive to get back to you. And one of the ways that you can do that is by just saying, I know this position's been open for a while. I can imagine that you are working 60 hours a week, and I bet you can't wait to get this job filled, and I can't wait to get started, right? So you want to remind them when you're in a job hunt situation that is in their best interest as well. Because most of the time, what happens is they're so busy because they need to hire, and then they're too busy to actually hire that person, right? So they're in that weird position where they need the help and they don't have time to get it. So you want to reinforce that it's in their best interest. Now, if you're doing business development and you're doing that from a networking perspective, again, what's in it for them? You want to sell your goods and services, But, they're also, I'm talking to other vendors, we'll get back with you, and then you never hear back. So again, you want to reframe their biggest pain points, because if you're in business development, you know what they are. And then you want to talk about how fast that pain point can go, when they finally pick an answer to that solution. So you want to reiterate that what's in it for them. And then the third thing is when you're networking, right? And you're networking just to keep your network alive and make sure that you've got that one phone call away from anything that you need. So when you're doing that, you're having those conversations, find something that they're excited to do, is have a conversation to say, okay, what could get in the way of this plan? What could prevent us from having a follow-up conversation in 2 weeks from now, like we just discussed? And you want them to think about it, because most of the time, at least I know when I was in a situation where I ended up ghosting people, most of the time what I ended up doing was, I make a commitment, but then I would depend on somebody else to do their part before I could come back and do that. And then when they didn't do it, then that made me late and I got busy and I'd forgotten all that stuff. So when you bring that to the front of the conversation, saying, okay, who else is in, what could get in the way of us actually having that conversation? All of a sudden, you start to know the barriers and how many dependencies that person has. And then you start to get a feel for, okay, so next time you follow up, if you're not hearing back, you know that there's a cog in the wheel and you can help unstick that cog when you have that opportunity. So you want to make sure that you take it beyond the when's a good time to follow up and do all of that, plus add in what could prevent us from getting where we need to go by the time frame that we just discussed. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about in terms of what you need to do every single time is you need to 10x your follow-up. In the chat window right now, give me a sense of, when you have a networking conversation, how many times do you follow up with a person before you realize, I don't want to be a bother and I'm going to step back? Is it 1, 2, 3? What is the normal time, right? So let me know how many times you guys normally follow up, because I'm really curious. Most of the people I talk to throw 1 or 2 emails out and then they back off. And you shouldn't do that, because people are busy. They have the attention span of a 5-year-old. And if you are not in their face all the time, you're never, ever going to get where you need to go. Because out of sight is out of mind, regardless of their best intentions. But how do you do that without sounding like a total stalker, right? You don't want to do that. And so you want to find a variety of different ways to make sure that you can stay present and persistent in that person's, sphere of influence. And you can do that by doing a very specific follow-up, right? So, yep, we said we were going to talk in 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks and 1 day. I'm checking in on you. But then you can also have so many other techniques. Some of the other things you might want to think about is sharing an article with them that you know that they're going to find interesting. Asking them a question that you know they're an expert in and saying, oh, I was just talking to another person over here. What's your opinion about that? You can also take a look at what they're doing on LinkedIn and where they are in social, share their things, like their things, because they do check out and say who likes my stuff and who's sharing that. And so you just want to make sure that you are able to stay persistent in that person's world, 10 times more than you usually do. Yes. And I'm seeing 3 and 4. I saw, maybe 10. All right, Kim, that is awesome. Good for you. But Kim, I know you and I are, share the same spirit in that, in terms of persistence. But again, there's a balance between being persistent and being a pain in the ass. And you don't want that to happen. You don't want to be that creepy person that people are like, oh, I want to walk away from. So just make sure that you use different channels and that you are diversifying how you're reaching out to this person. And I've got one more tip for you before we wrap it up. And this is, I think, something I struggle with and something everyone struggles with. And the tip is, get off of technology. Whenever we are focused on technology, that gives us a level of anonymity that really gets us off the hook when we talk about accountability. So if you have somebody that you spoke to on the phone or that you did a Zoom call with and looked in their eye and said, I'm going to call you back next week, you are much more likely to do that than if you got an email. I mean, let's face it, my email is normally like 500 or 600, messages long. And on average, somebody in corporate America is getting 250 emails a day. And so when you're 100% reliant on technology, you are going to get ghosted significantly more. And it's not because they don't want to talk to you. It's just because you're not hitting them in an area that they feel personally accountable to. So I want to make sure that you really understand that pick up the phone, right? Throw a text message, because I never let a text message go, right? But pick up the phone, have a conversation, schedule a Zoom call, message them through LinkedIn, send them emails, get personal as much as you can. Because when you are behind technology, they have no obligation to get back with you. And let's face it, the guilt factor plays in here, right? I felt guilty whenever I ghosted someone. I always did. Didn't stop me from doing it because I was busy and running, 12-hour meeting to pick up the phone. I will pick up the phone. That way I can apologize and get that ball moving forward again. So you just want to make sure that you put yourself in these people's shoes. And these people, especially now, are insanely busy. They are handling, an incredibly complex work environment in terms of remote work. Are we going back? Are we not going back? Are we going to be in business next week? Are we exploding because, of the different changes in the economic situation? So people are all dealing with uncertainty. They're dealing with duct tape and baling twine to put things together because that's what we have right now. And so when we think that we need something, it's kind of in our universe, and it's the most important thing to us. And while people may be willing to help, or they may need your help in either, from a business development or from a job search perspective, sometimes people just can't get out of their own way to get the conversation going and to get this over the finish line. And so it is 100% up to you to make sure that they have a reason to get back to you and they know what's in their best interest and why. That you have a backup plan and that you know exactly what's going to happen, who's in the decision-making chain, who could possibly not deliver their part to delay the conversation, so that way you've got that full context as well as they do. And then you also know that you need to follow up 10x more than you really are. Only start to get creative about it. Do something different, be innovative, be informative, be funny. I mean, every now and then I'll just throw like a dumb, joke out in email just because you need to lighten things up a little bit. I don't know if you saw the killer tomato thing I put on LinkedIn about a week ago, but there's like 700 people that looked at that. Like, oh, if they only read my real post that much, that would be great. But so you just got to mix it up a little bit, right? And you guys all can do that. And I know you can, but you need to have a plan and you need to stick to the plan and you need to make sure that you do that. So hopefully these tips are going to help you realize that, yes, you do have a role to play in stopping the ghosting, stopping the ghosting cycle. So you are not a victim. You are not out of control. You're not crazy. You're not interested. You're not uninteresting. None of those things. So those things that we think about, like, oh, they're not interested or whatever, not true. I would say 80% of the time that is absolutely not true. People just get crazy busy. They get distracted and they're running out of time. So you need to make it painfully easy for them to follow you, find you, and remember that, yep, I need to get back to them and this is exactly what I want to do. So hopefully this is helpful. I know I promised to try and keep these to 15 minutes so that way we can just get a power pack information session in. Again, I'm going to be doing these every Wednesday. So what I'd also love to see in the chat window or throw me an email is what else do you want me to talk to you about? Because I can roll in and riff on anything. So send me your ideas. I'm also going to put a link in the post. I've got a free download for you guys called 35 Foolproof Conversation Starters. So if you're stuck on trying to figure out, okay, how do I start the conversation? How do I keep it going? Then absolutely download that. It's going to be, it gives you 35 different ways to do it. And if you've got questions, you can always find me online, on LinkedIn, all that kind of fun stuff. So thank you for all the comments. Thank you for not making me talk to myself on my first live, because I hate that. And I'm going to see you guys from training later on tonight, and I'll see the membership team next week. So have a great day. Stop getting ghosted. And the challenge to you today is to go find somebody in your network that you have been waiting to hear back from and start to do those techniques that we just talked about. So that is your challenge that I'll leave you with. Have a fantastic day, guys, and we'll talk soon. Take care.